What was that? Okay.
Oh,
It's popping. Oh, there we go.
News.
I've got it.
All right. So
Okay, got it. Very good.
I will take the lead on talking about the CARES Act funding that we received as a part of the CARES Act. These are funds that are coming through HUD. They are funds meant to provide assistance to prevent, prepare for, and respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. Chelsea, you want to add? So in addition to our 2020 funds, we will be receiving $1,116,973 for CDBG CV funds. We have also been notified that we will be receiving in the first allocation of ESG CV funds $560,655, and in the second round of ESG CV funds, we will be receiving $601,061. There was also a second round of CDBG CV funds that went to the state. We have yet to be notified how the state plans to allocate those funds, distribute those out to localities. We will be keeping an eye on that to see if we will be getting additional funds from that. And there will also be additional competitive rounds. Yes?
Got a question. Is that state money, is that what's tied up in, I can't recall if it's Senate bill or House Bill 310, do you know?
I do not know that these have all already gone through House and Senate, has approval. We're just waiting on getting the funds and getting additional direction on how to use the funds.
Okay, because the last time I checked, it was tied up in the House. So the householder was holding it up because they were trying to decrease the amount of money going to the municipalities.
Yep, I think that was the HEROES Act, which is the second round of.
Right. Has that? Do you know if that's been resolved?
It has not been resolved as of yet. It was a bill that was passed by the House of Representatives, and then it went over to the Senate, and the Senate is, as far as I know, they're still holding that up. And that bill contained a larger portion of funds to go directly to municipalities and state governments in response.
Well, my thinking on it, and the reason I raise it is, if it has not been passed by the House, and my understanding is the Senate passed it and the cities were going to do okay with it. And then householder held it up in the House of Representatives in Columbus.
Gotcha.
In order to get the townships more money and take money away from the cities, even though the bulk of the COVID-19 pandemic cases are in the cities.
Happening in the city, yeah.
So I'm wondering, I know we don't have a quorum, but I'm wondering if staff working through, and I don't know how we do this, but I'm wondering if staff could get a sense of the advisory committee to write to our representative and senator, that would be Senator Bob Hackett in the Senate and Representative Kyle Kaler in the House, encouraging them to approve Senate bill or House bill, I forget which, 310. Check with Brian to see where it is, because he's been monitoring it very carefully. There's quite a bit of money involved in this. And if they allocate more away from us, obviously it hurts us. So since we can't officially act, I'm wondering if the staff can act as sort of a sense of And that's the terminology, a sense of the committee.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't have Al's info.
I just think it's important that we use every opportunity. Hackett voted with us. I don't know where Kaler is. You might again talk to Brian,
Mhm.
but this second round money is a big pot, and it was all set, ready to go to be distributed using the local government formula, and then the speaker threw out the anchor and put the kibosh to it.
Right.
So I don't know if that's possible, but I think it's an opportunity to speak up if it hasn't been.
Mhm.
Just another opportunity to say, hey, we're watching, we're paying attention here.
Exactly. Yeah. I think what we can do is find out additional information, and staff can draft a letter, and we could send it out to CGAB for approval.
Dad, I like it. I
Okay.
like it.
Yep.
That's great. Check and see where things are,
Mhm.
because if it's already passed, the horse has left the barn. But I think it was last week I was talking with Brian, and I don't think it has, but I'm not sure.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we'll get back to talking about these funds, because they have passed. They are on their way. The application has been submitted. We are just waiting on final approval and grant agreements from HUD at this point. And I did put a side note on this slide that says that there are other funds that are being sent specifically to the state level, and specifically surrounding homelessness, that is also coming into our community. IHN has been the recipient of additional dollars to prevent homelessness, and to fund some of their shelter activities, which, have moved from their 2 specific shelters for men and for family into hotel stays in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Chelsea, if you want to do the next slide. Along with the allocation of funds, HUD also gave us some specific extra powers to use our funds. We'll call them waivers. They call them waivers. Next one, Chelsea. So for CDBG, we have been given the ability to quickly turn around our plans. So rather than a 30-day public comment period, we have a 5-day comment period for the use of the CV funds. We can also hold virtual public hearings rather than having to convene everybody in one place to receive comment. We also received the elimination of the 15% cap on public services for the fiscal year 2019, 2020, and that 1.1 million in CDBG CV funds. This is really, really important, because one of the main activities that we anticipate needing to use these funds for would be for homelessness prevention. In CDBG lingo, it would be emergency response. That is considered a public service. So normally we would be kept at 15%. 15% of the funds would be able to be used for that. This waiver allows us to go over that, to use it for homelessness prevention. Any kind of assistance to the food bank would be public service. Assistance to United Senior Services, for example, would also be public services. This is the pot of money that really allows us to respond to what our citizens need. So we've gotten a good deal of flexibility on that. It also gave us a 90-day extension on submitting our CAPER. Our CAPER is our end of year report. Normally that is due at the end of June, and luckily we've not had to begin preparing for that. Normally this meeting every year is held so that we can discuss with you guys what we did with the money in the previous year. We will likely be doing that in June, maybe July, depending on the timing of everything. But again, we're not under that same 90-day clock. We have 180 days, so we've got 3 more months to get that finalized. Next slide, Chelsea. Yes.
A question on the homelessness. I know the request for services through the food bank is up significantly. Are you seeing a similar pattern in homelessness? What do the numbers look like at this point, even percentage-wise?
Yep, we normally full capacity for IHN looks about like 70 individuals being at full capacity. They don't always run at full capacity. What we are seeing with transitioning folks into the hotel and the increased in need, we're hovering right under 100 individuals being placed in hotels. It is a significant rise in homelessness. We also haven't begun yet to see the impact of unemployment because there is that $600 extra boost in unemployment that will go away in July. And we've also seen a moratorium on evictions. That is, yes, next week is when they begin eviction court again. And I think they've got right around 25 or 30 that are scheduled for next week evictions. So we'll begin to see that kind of thing going. We anticipate using some of our ESG funds, some of our CDBG funds, and some of our home funds for homelessness prevention and rental assistance kind of activities.
So adding those numbers quickly in my head, we're looking at almost doubling the number of homeless people in Springfield from before COVID-19.
Yeah, I think it could be roughly a double. The other thing to keep in mind is that IHN is working extremely hard to, these aren't the same 100 people in
Right.
the hotel room. They're moving people out of the hotel and into permanent housing. And then they have someone else take their place. So it's sort of a revolving door that, you know, they get case management, they get assessed for the services they need, and then they get placed in permanent housing, and then they can take another household.
That's pretty incredible.
They are working very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chelsea, next one. I mentioned that we will also be using some of our home funds for TBRA, which is tenant-based rental assistance. We did not receive extra home funds in the CARES Act allocation, but we do typically carry a balance of funds from year to year in our home program. So we will be looking to provide rent and utility assistance through the home program. What the CARES Act did, however, was provide us some waivers so that we could more easily utilize TBRA, home funding for TBRA. It expedited the process. We already had tenant-based rental assistance within our con plan, but those communities that didn't have it in their plan to do it, they didn't have to go back out and do an assessment. It also relieved us of having to worry about rent reasonableness. Typically, when we take a look at providing rental assistance, we have to make sure that the tenant is under a certain level, paying under a certain level of rent. We anticipate that there are people that will be coming to us that are already in a lease and already paying too much money in rent. We need to help them anyway. We need to be able to help them weather this storm. It also allows us the maximum subsidy. We can go up to paying 100% of their rent and utility for a portion. We are designing the program to take a look at assistance in 3-month chunks. So we will be looking at back rent and moving forward in 3-month chunks and reevaluating after that. It also, the waiver also allows us to not worry about the lease term or the tenant protection. Again, knowing that we're going to have clients that come into the program that already have leases that may not have the lease protection that we would typically want to see. Normally, when we provide rent assistance, there also must be an HQS, a housing quality standards inspection, and there's also a yearly inspection that must be done for all units that receive rental assistance. Those are waived because of in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Also, income determinations. Normally, what the home program requires is 2 months of source documentation. We know that during this time, it may not be easiest to get that kind of information. So there will be a self-certification form where everyone on the household is listed and all the incomes, and the homeowner will sign off on that, knowing that we can come back later and request those source documentation items. Next slide, Chelsea. We also got waivers for the home program in general. So normally we're allowed to spend 10% of our home funds for admin activities. They have bumped this up to 25%. That is in direct relation to our ability to do home TBRA. Most home TBRA activities that is done qualifying the individual and doing the inspections fall under admin. So we will need to use a bit more admin for that. The waivers also allowed us to release the CHOTO set aside. Normally in the home program, 15% of our funds have to go to a CHOTO, a community housing development organization. We have one here in Springfield. It's Neighborhood Housing Partnership. We don't have to set that money aside. We can utilize that, for example, for rental assistance. Not that we anticipate taking any money away from NHP. In fact, they are the partner that we will likely be working with to provide the CDBG and the home tenant rental assistance. So we're sort of repurposing their activities for a little bit. The home program waiver also released us from our matching requirement. Normally that's not a big deal for us because of the conditions of our community, our incomes are very low. We don't normally have matching requirements, but we don't have to worry about that at all. It also allows across the board in the home program. So whether we're talking about a home buyer program or rental assist or our rental assistance, our rental program, all of those programs can utilize the self-certification of income. It also waives across the board for all of our home programs, any inspections and any on-site monitoring that we need to do on a 1-year or 3-year basis. That's all waived until after December 31st, 2020. Next slide, Chelsea. Okay, and then just a caveat that there is still a lot that we don't know about how HUD expects us to use these funds. They gave us the allocation and they gave us the ability to apply for these funds, but they haven't given us a set of rules for them. Other than those waivers, we don't have any other kind of rules. So we will need to go through the notices for both CDBG and ESG in order to make sure that what we anticipate using those funds for is actually HUD compliant. There's been a lot of talk and a lot of webinars that Chelsea and I have been sitting through with a lot of speculation, but until we actually have those notices in hand, We don't want to get just the cart too far before the horse. Yes, and that last sentence, we do anticipate that we will need to amend our budgets we know that there are some things that are in our budget that may not necessarily come to fruition, or we may need to do more homelessness prevention. It was just a guess when we did it, and we needed to do it in a hurry to get it submitted so we could get the money as quickly as possible. Chelsea, is that my last slide on that one?
That is. Would you like to switch over to the budget document?
Yes, we'll take a sort of a bigger look at the budget. This is going to include all of our funding for 2020. That would include our 2020 CDBG, ESG, and home dollars, as well as projection for how we're going to spend the CDBG, CV, and ESG funds.
Is that big enough, or does anybody need me to zoom in?
I'm
That's
still
good,
seeing the CARES Act stuff.
CARES Act. Last slide.
Okay, so I need to new share this one. Okay, now how is it?
There you go. Yeah. Wait, it's too big. I can actually read it. No,
Yeah.
All right, so most of this is pretty familiar, or okay, perhaps you have seen this before. We have brought this to CGAB, the CDBG 2020 budget. We will be receiving in the regular CDBG funds just under $1.9 million. So taking a look at those funds, of course, we've got some funds for code enforcement and demolition, some economic development, and of course, administration in there. We also have a good bit in the housing rehab kind of activities, whether that's in our engaged neighborhood or citywide programs. We'll be looking at that. And then down below, we also have public services for food bank and promise neighborhood and homeless activities. What we will be adding to that is in that second column under CDBG. That 223,000 is the maximum we can spend in administration. We don't know what that's going to look like quite yet, but if we can put it back into the city, we will absolutely consider doing that. And then we put it into a couple different buckets. We utilize public facilities, not knowing if we needed to, for example, utilize CDBG funds to set up a testing station for COVID-19. That would be one use of that the public facilities kind of money. We also put in 100,000 for special economic development that would need to be tied to the COVID-19. And then we also utilized a bucket of $500,000 for public services, whether that's for senior services, for mental health, regular health, food banks, senior services, I think I said that, or homelessness prevention, that kind of activity. And then for the ESG fund, that first column, the 2020 is what you've already seen. We partner very closely with IHN. They provide the family and the men's shelter. They also do our rapid rehousing, and they also administer our HMIS for us, which is the Homeless Management Information System. That is sort of the database that tells us, it keeps track of our performance measures. It tells us if we're being successful in preventing homelessness and ending homelessness. We will be allocating additional funds. We also fund Project Woman. I don't want to skip those or skip them. We will be providing extra funds for operations because that will also be covering the hotel stays. But we'll also be giving additional funds for rapid rehousing and homelessness prevention. And there will be additional administration dollars as well as HMIS. Again, those are all just kind of projections. Once we understand what the rules are, we will be changing those around a little bit. And then if you look at the, go ahead.
Jackie, question. In the first CDBG funding, to what extent has the COVID-19 pandemic, how has it, for instance, has it slowed down our demolition program? I know what it's done to our efforts with housing because the task force hasn't met since March.
Right.
Do you mind quickly just sort of going through the impact of the pandemic on the services provided and funded by this?
Absolutely. You know, it's been a weird and challenging time in community development. Code enforcement has continued. You know, we haven't been in the office much, but code enforcement takes place a lot out in the community and in their cars. So code enforcement has still been out in the neighborhoods. They haven't been, they had not been issuing citations, but just keeping an eye on things. I believe they're opening that up to start that again, you know, with the understanding that we are in odd times.
Right.
The demolition program, Kim Foltz, our, you know, the lead person for demolition, has been very proactive in doing a lot of the behind the scenes kind of things. She's helping Chelsea with the environmental reviews to expedite that to go on. It has slowed a little bit, but you know, things like emergency demolitions
Right.
can't stop just
Right.
because we're dealing with something else. So yeah, code enforcement has carried on, demolition has carried on. I would say economic development is carrying on as well. I do know that Shannon helped facilitate applying for an additional $750,000 for an EDA RLF fund that we will partner with SBDC to get out the door for COVID related economic development activities. So they will have some additional funds to put into the community. Our housing programs, yes, have slowed way down. A lot of that is sort of in person, and you've got to get into a person's house to take a look. We kept our emergency program open because we don't want anybody to, you know, be without a decent roof that isn't leaking.
Right.
But the others have kind of been put on hold a little bit. As we progress, we can open that up a little bit better, but as of right now, we're still pretty slow on that.
Hey, Jackie.
Yes.
Good morning. I'm glad to join you. I do apologize for joining you late. But Commissioner Jackie gave you a great overview of the fact that community development has continued since March 16th at about 95% capacity in the work that we do. I actually was late because I had to go out and manage an emergency demolition this morning at a very significant fire. So the fact is, you know, the work that we do happens every day, and we have not been able to really cut back on any of that work. I think that as like Jackie said, as we start to open back up a little bit and can start some more in-person work, we'll be able to re-engage some of those larger like Housing Solutions Consortium meetings. But overall, we all have to be very proud of the entire community development department in knowing that with just a few hours notice, they packed up and transitioned to continuing their professions from their living rooms, dining rooms, bedrooms, etc. And really can't be more proud of everybody. laundry rooms, dining rooms, dens. They've all become our command centers. So we appreciate everything that the entire department has done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is Tyra still on this call, or is she? I
I'm
saw her
here.
name at one point.
I'm here.
I just wanted to also thank you, Tyra, for your tireless work on feeding our community. I know the stress on your organization and on you is incredible. So I just wanted to say thank you to you, as well as all the city employees who have just absolutely stepped up during this whole pandemic thing that we're dealing with. So thank you all. Thank you very, very much.
And then the very last thing I will mention on the budget is just, you will see some addition, a second column added to our home funding. I had mentioned that we haven't received any additional home funding, but that second column will show you that we do anticipate additional home admin costs. And then we will also be reallocating some of our funds into home TBRA, tenant-based rental assistance, as we move forward. That will actually probably be our first rental assistance program that rolls out. As I had mentioned, we anticipate using ESG, CDBG, and home, but the CDBG and ESG funds are new funds. So we have to wait on those. We have existing home funds that we are working to repurpose and get out the door for rent and utility assistance. Any questions in general or specific? Chelsea, I don't need the budget up there anymore.
Right. Stop share. And I do believe that I'm going to have to run to my next appointment. So I have no updates, but nice to meet you all.
Bye, Chelsea.
Hi, Chelsea. Hey, Jackie,
Any
is that
other-
about all we have then?
Shannon, do you have an update for the good of the group?
That's all we have then for today?
I think that's all that we have for today. If Jackie is finished, what I will add is, I just paid homage to the entire community development department, but please know the yeoman's work that particularly Jackie and Chelsea are doing, supported by Dave and Becky. We got to a point where, money is coming in faster than we can keep track, but unfortunately we can't physically use it because the rules aren't coming with the announcements of the cash. And that creates a lot of pressure for the team that's responsible for administering those federal funds. And, we've spoken about this before as a board, but just please know the commitment and the profession that comes specifically from the development programs department. Without these ladies and gentlemen, we would be losing and missing opportunities within our community that none of us would even know existed. So I just give my greatest thanks to both Jackie and Chelsea and the support that Becky and Dave are providing as well.
Thanks, Shannon. Yeah, I think that they do a great job, and a lot of the work that people in the city do is below what people see out on the streets. And they say, well, they're not doing anything. Well, yes, they are. They're, the work behind the scenes is so tremendous that you just see a little bit out on the streets, and it wasn't, So I think that's really great. They do a great job, and I thank them all from a citizen. Thank all of you. You too, Shannon. I mean, if all you people have great resources, and we'd be very lost without them. So thanks all of you. And I know it's not been easy. It's not been easy for any of us the past few months, and we've all had to learn how to adjust and do things differently, and and do it on the fly. We got to do it as we, you stop waiting for the nine minds by stomping your feet trying to find. You don't have any path to do with. So we've more or less blazed a trail. I think we've done a tremendous job, not only as a city, but as a country, and trying to get through this. So I appreciate all your help and all your work, and I do miss seeing all of you. You know, this is nice, but it's not like being in person, you know. So, Jackie, do we have anything else to bring up before the board?
I do not have anything else, no.
Okay. Does anyone have any comments at the? Okay. With none, then I guess I'll entertain motions to adjourn if anybody would like to. Don't all speak at once. Well, I guess we are adjourned, and thank you for coming. And you know, we'll try to do this again. Hopefully, next time we can meet in person. You know, but otherwise, thanks for all the work for Valerie and everybody that did the work to put this thing together. And you know, even I got in on it, you know, because of my grandson that knew how to do it. But you know, thanks everybody, and you know, if nothing else, we're adjourned, and I'll talk to you all later then.